So, hi everyone. The system tells me that you're all online, but in listening mode. You can use the chat if you want to type in questions or ask things. But first of all, welcome to everyone to today's ELTA live webinar on data visualization. I'm Hariolf Wenzler. I'm the Chief Strategy Officer with Baker McKenzie. And we're pretty much into data visualization. We means, especially my colleague Sebastian, who I'm happy to introduce, and who will play a major role in today's webinar after my introduction. And I'll sort of chime in at a certain point in time, and I invite all of you to come with questions and your contributions via the web chat. And I hope you will enjoy our webinar. We've tried to design it in a way that it enables everybody to sort of come on board, and it doesn't require too many prerequisites as to what a dashboard is or what data design is. So we'll pretty much start with the beginning and telling about why data visualization. And if Sebastian shows the agenda, we're going to start with the, after the short introduction of the value of data visualization, then a bit of do's and don'ts, what makes a good data viz, what are guidelines to use. The question, why does data visualization matter, plays an important role, and then we'll jump into the legal world of data viz example. So for all of you who are already pretty familiar with the sort of the ramp up, you can sort of continue to work on your emails for the next 10 or 15 minutes and then jump into the live demo of what we do with data visualization and the practical examples we're going to show. For all others, you're welcome to start with us from the beginning, the journey of data visualization, what it means to legal, and then we'll end with the quick and dirty on data visualization and with some links you might want to find useful and that will probably help you to work on after today's webinar. So much for the introduction. Sebastian has a background as one of our BD people here at Baker McKenzie in Frankfurt, and he came especially with the background of data visualization. He has been working for a solar company before that. Is a pretty international person, travels a lot, has probably seen more countries on the globe than exist, and is a great guy to be and to work with, and I hand over to him now.
Thank you very much, Hariolf, for the nice introduction and the great words. As said, I'd like to introduce myself as well a little. My name is Sebastian. I've been with Baker McKenzie and with Hariolf for a bit more than a year now, I would say, and basically are there, well, as a business developer, but as well in a second role of a product development manager, and doing all kinds of topics around legal design. And this obviously as well includes data visualization. So thanks again for running through the agenda. I will basically directly deep dive into the topic, and I would like to invite all of you to lean back and enjoy this session about data visualization. So first of all, I would like to give you a little kind of, warm-up, shall I say. It's basically, before starting the actual workshop, to start with those 3 number sequences. And one of you or the one or the other might think, well, this is just routine, isn't it? Because we see those 3 number samples and we think about how to continue with which number. And at first, basically, it seems to be routine, but it's basically not, because the problem here is that the more we know, the more biased we become. And to come up with a solution here, we really have to step back into a meta perspective to understand what's going on. So, I will just start. It's going to be number 14, and basically what we can see here, our experience and perceived knowledge has tricked us. So there is no mathematical logic behind it. it's much easier than one could guess, because the first example is basically just an number sequence. Second example, one or the other could guess, is number 18 with half angular, half round number sequence. And the third one would be a, well, solely based round number sequence. This is just for the beginning. We will as well get back to this later. So, speaking about the value of data visualization itself, what is data visualization? Basically the graphical representation of information. And well, one may say that knowledge is power, but how do we really make this knowledge powerful? And well, our today's session looks at some of the many visual techniques to use to communicate information effectively to a larger audience. And well, data visualization is basically the presentation of quantitative information in a graphical form. In other words, it turns large and small data sets into visuals that are much easier for our brains to be understood and to be processed. And well, data visualizations are surprisingly common in our everyday life. They often appear in well, the form of well-known charts and graphs, and a combination of multiple visualization and bits informations are many times referred as infographics, so to say. Well, why are we doing all this? We are doing this to discover unknown facts and trends, so to say. You may see visuals in the form of line charts display change over time, bar and column charts, useful when observing relationships and making comparisons. Then we have those, well, rather old school pie charts, which are still a great way of showing parts of a whole, well, sometimes. And maps are indeed a good way to show and share geographical data. So with respect to this and what has been said so far, data visualization software allows us to select the best way of presenting the data, and the software automates this step pretty much, so to say. Still, some tools automatically interpret the shape of the data and detect correlations between certain variables, and then place these discoveries into the chart type that the software determines to be optimal. Well, I will as well later on get into dashboards and all those topics regarding multiple visualizations on ones. But first of all, I would like to, well, give you a pretty simple example. You have a data set comprising of, yeah, numbers, and the challenge here is becoming especially difficult when trying to convey a message there full of complex data, which is really difficult to be interpreted quickly and well, clearly with an. So particularly when knowledge comes in the form of data, we have to ask ourselves two questions. We have to ask ourselves, how do we find the meaning to gain insights and make the decisions based upon it? And how do we tell and share the story behind it? So in order to craft a good data visualization, we really need to start with clean data and have to be clear about that it's well sourced and complete. Once the data is ready to be visualized, you need to pick the right chart. Then it can be a bit tricky because, well, sometimes we don't know yet what chart to be used, but there can be, or there are basically many resources available, which I will introduce to you later, to pick the right type of chart for your data. Well, for now, I would like you to try to spot the digits with the number 4 within this data set. It's a bit difficult, isn't it? So, well, we can have a slight improvement there, highlighting the 4s with at least color, so to say. So, color is already a very helpful indicator, and this is now rather basic, one should say, combined with size, may be spotted even easier. So this basically leads us to the following. The basic essence behind all this is combining data and design is, well, essential, and it needs to be designed to be informative and intuitive for us. This means that a successful infographic tells a story and it communicates data in an accurate way so that people can user can understand it, deal with it, make decisions. So, well, what makes a good data visualization? I just said you really have to think about the story that you would like to tell. And basically, we are asking ourselves here at Baker McKenzie in Frankfurt, what do we want to find out? What would we like to highlight, or what would the lawyers like to highlight, respectively, in order to find out certain aspects that either haven't been unearthed yet or, well, haven't even been thought about yet. So in order to start learning from the data set, basically, you have to adjust the pre-attentive attributes in order to make data comprehensive, in order to then gain insight. I will get a bit more into detail here following this graphic. It shows us basically, and this is the only theory I'm going to bore you with, it's a bit a theoretical framework and shall be there as a support, so to say. A good data visualization is created when the communication, data science, and as well the design collides. So the data visualization done right offers key insights into complicated data sets in ways that are meaningful and intuitive, as mentioned before. So, well, there's this American statistician, he's a Yale professor, Edward Tufte. He believes that excellent data visualization consists of complex ideas communicated with clarity, precision, and efficiency. Well, why do we do all this, and why does this matter? Today's data visualization tools go beyond the standard charts and graphs that well, are basically used in spreadsheets, displaying data in a more sophisticated way, such as infographics, dials and gogs, geographic maps, spark lines, heat maps, detailed bars, pies, and well. The image may include interactive capabilities, enabling users to manipulate them or drill them into the data for querying and analysis. So the indicators designed to alert users when data has been updated or predefined conditions occur may also be included. That said, again, why are we doing all this? Indeed, for a great user experience. In our case, being from a rather law-driven background, so to say, for a great client experience. So we provide information and data intuitively for the clients who, well, for instance, have limited time to read masses of information that have to be processed, who are rather time critical when it comes to decision making. And this is as well when I get back to the dashboard topic. So why does this really matter? Visual clues that our brain processes, this is done basically within 250 milliseconds. So think back of the force, like the digits you tried to find in the data set earlier. You really had to look for them. So simple features that are extracted from the visual display in the pre-attentive system and later joined in the focus attention system into coherent objects. So pre-attentive procession is done quickly, effortlessly, and in parallel without any attention being focused on the display itself. Well, we can drive this a little further once we are not talking about numbers, we are talking about colors. We can use patterns, trends, and correlations that might go undetected in text data, which can then be exposed and recognized easier with data visualization software. So again, once we are not looking for numbers but patterns, we should use color to separate, for instance, our BD activities in, well, in one or the other direction, just with fictive numbers. As well, we can use size for quantity, we can use orientation for trends, but well, the most essential stuff will come in our legal design section. And not only when it comes to data, the power of design can be used to better communication, all sorts of information processes, autonomy or anatomy, so to say, and understanding the data that you're trying to visualize, including its size, cardinality, the uniqueness of data values in a column, determine what you're trying to visualize and what kind of information you want to communicate, know your audience, understand how it processes visual information, use a visual that conveys the information in the best and simplest way from your audience. So it's basically a de facto standard for modern business intelligence. And yeah, basically what we are using here at Baker McKenzie is Tableau, and I will get into this in a bit. It got a strong data visualization functionality, and those tools, there are various other tools as well, have been or have become very important in democratizing the data and analytics and making data-driven insights available to well, all of us within our organizations, basically. So speaking about, we would like to dive a little bit deeper into the data visualization samples within the legal world. And for this, I would like, Hariolf to jump in and commence with the following.
Yeah, happy to do so. It's just a quick and easy overview, 2 pictures that show what was then and what we see the law firm or the legal profession, the legal service provider, whatever of the future. This is a picture everybody should be familiar with. This is what a law firm looked like in the old days. It is the green pyramid with legal people on 3 different levels. It's taken from a study of Boston Consulting Group and the Bucerius Law School of 2016, and you can see that outsourcing and automation started to take away pieces of the structure. And this structure in the old days produced piles of paper. And if we move to the next slide, you see that what we see, the vision of the law firm of the future, is that what happens on the left side is that for those who provide legal services, the world is becoming a lot more complex. So a law firm, a legal service provider, will come with legal knowledge in the core. So the green in the rocket are still the lawyers, but it's no longer a pyramid, it's rather a rocket. And these lawyers will work with project managers, tech managers, legal technicians, paralegals, but also with data visualizers like Sebastian. And it will be surrounded by a cloud of services outside the law firm, outsourcing partners, corporations, technology solutions. So if you look at the left side of the picture, you will see that the way legal knowledge is produced and legal services are produced is becoming way more complex than it has been in the old days. And what happens on the right side is that what we'll envision to happen is that the user experience for those who consume our products and who are sort of consuming our services, for them the world will become a lot easier and easier to digest, as we'll more and more deliver dashboards, heat maps, and things we would call embedded law. So what you would get is sort of a surface and a graphic surface to see a trend, to see a graphic analysis. The question is, my organization compliant with whatever European rules, for example, and you would get that in a visualized way. And if you tap onto it, you would sort of then dive into the next layers and sort of drill down to legal provisions that are embedded in a software, but on the top level, you'll get it as a dashboard or as a heat map in a way that there's a graphic interface that makes it easy to use and easy to digest. So user experience for those whom we deliver the services to will become a lot easier to make use of. So just as one of the sort of outtakes of or takeouts of today's webinar would be the idea that on a user side, things get a lot easier and a lot more graphic, and on the producer side, things get way more complicated in working together interdisciplinary with different skill sets, producing a much more complex product than today, which on the right side is easier to use and easier to digest. Sebastian.
Fantastic. Thank you very much for this. I will, based upon what you just said regarding dashboards and heat maps, directly jump into or onto our next slide, which is the following, indicating, well, what is happening here. We see a heat map, which is basically a two-dimensional representation of our data in which values are represented by colors. And this simple heat map provides an immediate visual summary of information for all kinds of countries to be seen on the left, the y-axis, so to say. And on the x-axis, we have a number of categories showing various topics, and more elaborate heat maps allow the viewer to understand complex data sets, which I will get into in a bit, because all this is as well interactive, and we will play a bit with it in Tableau, the software itself. And well, this basically, having this heat map allows you or the viewer, the lawyer, so to say, to do fast analytics. And there can be many ways to display heat maps, but they all share one thing in common. They use color to communicate the relationships between data values, and that would be much harder to understand if presented numerically in a spreadsheet, as well told and mentioned in the beginning. So I will just move on with the next examples, and I guess it's the best to then deep dive into Tableau. Before doing this, we will talk about the remaining examples. So what you basically see here can as well be mapped out in a world map, which as well is a similar approach, I would say, just facing the aspects including geographical data, as well as our brain rather processes a map, which we basically are familiar with, than a list of countries, for instance. So this to be shown here, as said, and having this said, I will move forward to another heat map indicating employment topics, which basically as well includes a search function on the upper right, just below our logo. So employment topics could be easily looked up with a sophisticated search, and one would have, first of all, fast analytics and a whole overview as a director, for instance, but could as well, on a rather local level, search for the respective terms and then get information really quickly. As well via filter functions and all sorts of filters on the right side, you can really quickly just have jurisdictional information, area information, category information, and can really quickly deep dive into, well, further detail, shall I say. Having this said, I will jump over to the next example, which is basically a project approach radar. And within this project approach radar, we can, greatly compare members of a dimension in a function of several metrics. So for example, when you want to, buy a smartphone or so, you can use a radar chart to compare several devices across several metrics. And these can be, for instance, battery life, memory capacity. We basically use this approach to, well, have parameters such as complexity, risk, duration, estimated costs of legal advice, and dependency, and can then select various approaches in order to then display yeah, our way of approaching, or the best or the most risk sensitive approach, and so on and so on. So this makes basically them a way of comparing multiple quantitative variables and makes them useful for seeing which variables have similar values, or if there are any outliers amongst each variable. Radar charts are also used for seeing which variables are scoring high or low within a data set. This makes them ideal for displaying performance, so to say. So yeah, having this said, I would directly flip over or switch over to the Tableau screen, and I would like you to let me know via the chat whether you can see it. Would be great if I get a short feedback that everyone can see the Tableau screen. Perfect. Fantastic, thank you so much. So, well, as mentioned, we have multi-categorial and multi-jurisdictional yeah, information behind this. And as I as well said, we can, in a way, deep dive into further information if we not only want this fast analytical huge dashboard, but if we want to deep dive into a respective market, and we can say, okay, via this tooltip, I will then get the justification, so to say, why the legislation policy in France is affected with risk number 4. And can then find out, okay, because of this and that, this situation is given. Same for each and every other market, and we will get a bit more into practical stuff in a bit, because this is all Latin-based text here, as you can see. Sorry for showing, sorry for not sharing a more practical approach at this point. Hope you understand. And as said and as shown, we can easily see the specific information behind all the data sets. If we now move over to the world map, I can easily say, okay, I would just like to know, so I have a whole market overview, so to say, about, well, in this case, the entire world map. I just want to know about category number 1. So I can, like, with one view, see that, well, the North American part is a bit, maybe some concerns there. Germany and China looks rather fine. And how does it look with topic number 2? Okay, totally different story here, but I can as well feed this with further information and dive into more detail, which is, as you can see, we layered 2 world maps here. So various layers possible as well, because particularly in the United States, it's given the fact that, state is different than the entire, so to say, same here in Canada. And you can see that everywhere there is a little pop-up window, and you can adjust all this easily within Tableau. I'm not a Tableau salesperson, by the way, just very satisfied with this. And can easily go into detail here with various topics. And this obviously can be scaled up or scaled down, totally depending on what you need. Having this said, I would like to jump into the test environment of this employer heat map, indicating various topics, saying working overtime, how does it look in the United States? Okay, but how does it look in Germany? The law does not require any extra allowance for overtime work. Collective bargaining agreements, however, usually provide for overtime compensation of 25%, etc. I'm not going to read out all of this. Everything I want to show you here is, on a first sight, we see very quick and fast analytics. So we can see on one view what is happening in the respective market. But if we would like to, we can as well go deeper into detail, and I can as well put URLs there and links there, which is pretty much the same, jumping into further detail, saying, okay, I want to connect this to a website and want to know more about sick and leave pay in Germany or Australia or wherever you wish. As well, I can say, okay, I really want to just quickly look something up. So I will check leave and say, okay, these two categories are dealing with leave. So I can directly check out what's happening here. I'll see that it's risk related with a number 3 and so that just set on the side can again be done on a global view, which is loading a bit now. Sorry for that. I will first jump to this. Project approach radar, basically I filled it with some dummy data from countries, and we can here, I will quickly go into the presenter mode. We can here, yeah, first of all, see various aspects when it comes to, I just called it France project approach. Let's go into the Denmark one, and we can see that it will adjust in a while. And let's go into another one to show a bit more, yeah, that gives us a nice contrast. What I could as well do now, so this is a project I'm currently working on, I could as well, or I will as well, include filters here now, and will include various yeah, functions and calculated fields in order to layer the various approaches in order to then make them comparable and to see which approach would be the best when it comes to those 5 parameters. So yeah, having this said, I will jump back to the presentation and we'll go into full screen mode. And we just basically, yeah, put together a little quick and dirty on data visualization, which is Harvard Business Review, and it's just for you as a takeaway, so to say, some espresso for the mind. Well, your data is only as good as your ability to understand and to communicate it, and you really need to be able to understand and effectively communicate the story behind those numbers. Best way to tell a story with your data is basically by visualizing it using graphs, charts, or, well, what I just showed you. When you can visualize your data in one of these formats, you'll be able to, yeah, more easily uncover or unearth patterns, correlations, outliners, communicate those insights to your colleagues, clients, supervisors, your team, your company, and then indeed make data-backed decisions, so to say. So this is basically the quick and dirty by Harvard Business Review. Am I presenting or circulating my data? That's the first question. Then, am I using the right kind of chart or table? What message, what story do you basically want to tell with it? Whom are you trying to convey? Do your visuals accurately reflect the numbers that you're showing? So you always need to double check. And is your data basically memorable? So at this point, we as well put together various helpful links for you. And I'm absolutely a fan of the first one, as it basically shows you a whole range of yeah, to show your data, and it as well explains you in how to use it. So I will just quickly at this point, as I really would love to share this with you, show you what my driver was when it came to this radar chart. So this is called databizcatalog.com. And you have this nice index, first of all, to be viewed as a list, which is a fan of lists. So I'm a visual type of guy, so to say. And I had this idea of showing the project approaches within this radar chart, but, well, can I get a bit further information about this? Yes, I can. Okay, radar chart, basically as well known as spider chart, web chart, polar chart, star plots, whatever. and is basically a way of comparing multiple quantitative variables as said. And then you can as well have the whole explanation behind it, can see similar charts and so on and so on. This is as well available for all kinds of other things as you can see here. And well, as said, we shared this within this presentation for you. I as well included Tableau, as it always has really cool examples like this of the day, so to speak. It's the visualization of the day, which is as well a highlight always. Those guys are really fit. And Infogram, which is basically some infographic type of website indicating all kinds of ideas, feeding you with well, useful stuff for creating your visualization. Same for Information is Beautiful and Flowing Data. Well, we are almost at the end of the presenting section, at least. I would as well like to say the following. I'll try anything once except of mistakes, those I make over and over, which is basically a yeah, very important takeaway, not only for today, but particularly when it comes to product development and prototyping. So, well, it needs various approaches to get to an appropriate solution, shall I say. And well, at this point, I would like to say thank you very much, all of you. Hope that was insightful for you and gave you some ideas about, well, data visualizations and future projects. And at this point, would like to hand over to Hariolf.
Okay, so we're open for questions and happy to discuss. We're also happy to follow up on this individually. So if there are questions you don't want to ask in the chat, feel free to reach out to us and ask us whatever you're interested in. And I have the pleasure to invite you and to announce that by now the next webinar, just as a reminder, and I'll say that at the end again, will be on April 25, so end of April, 7 p.m. with Margaret Hagen from the Stanford Legal Design Lab, and the host will be our Russian ambassador, Holger, who will then be your guide through next time's session. Make sure, I don't know whoever of you have met Margaret. She's a great, not just a great presenter, she's also, of course, a great person with her background at Stanford Law School, and she is probably the authority in legal design, running the Legal Design Lab at the Stanford University. So make sure you don't miss that. I just put that into the chat. 25th of April. Make sure you join, and then we hope you had a good takeaway of this of the session today. I'm just checking if there are more questions in the chat. If there are no questions, we're happy to hear that you seem to be happy, and we're happy to take any suggestions and feedback later via the ELTA website. Make sure you make the most of it and come back on April 25 at the latest.
So I saw that we have a question from Ceres Buchner, if I pronounce it right.
Okay, Ceres, why do I not see that in my chat here? Good question.
Same here.
It's within the question section.
Okay.
All right.
And you have to unfold it. And then Sebastian mentioned at the end that the product development and prototyping is a process that involves mistakes and time. I'm just wondering what this process involves. Who do you involve as stakeholders in putting the work in front and getting feedback?
So hang on one second. I will just reread this as I try to open this window. Okay. Well, basically, getting back to this question, I'm working together with the whole range, so to say. So working obviously with my team, but as well with the lawyers, and as well working at client side. Getting lots of impressions there, getting lots of ideas there regarding various, well, I wouldn't be as concrete and say tools, I would say regarding needs on behalf of the client. And the client would ask me about, or brief me about his issues, so to say. And I would then, in the design thinking approach, scope out what his problem is, what his issue is, in order to then find with the respective lawyers an appropriate solution. And then in all iterative circles, so to say, approaches, always backing up with the team here in Frankfurt, BD team, but as well with my product development team all around the world, so to say. And I'm always a friend of delivering early stage versions, so to speak, of my product, as well called minimum viable product, MVP, which already gives you an idea if your idea basically is going into the proper direction. So you would deliver an early stage product, you would then directly get feedback from your client. Obviously, you many times have to read between the lines a bit, and as in so many situations in life, and then, you will find out what is needed. I hope that answers your question.
Okay, I'll get back to the next question. It's Frederick who asks if we can send the links, and I'm happy to answer that. We'll distribute the presentation afterwards, so with the links, so everybody can use the presentation, but also can make use of the links we've just provided.
Perfect. Any further questions? Yeah, there's another one from Axel. How can data viz be used in and for contracts, e.g. helping summarizing the content or event, or even in the drafting process? Okay, yeah, no worries. Getting back to that question, indeed. Well, you can, that's the beauty of Tableau, as well work with qualitative data, so to say. And I don't want to be wrong at this point. You obviously need to structure it and need to take the contract word phrases or whichever and put it into a nice and neat database. And then you could, well, look for wordings, you could summarize it and show it in a dashboard. You could relate it to risk factors. You could then say, if this and that wording is changed, we can, for instance, diminish risk. Well, can all be done. Yeah. So in the drafting process itself, I think we are rather talking about building a database out of it, and I can individually reply to you on that one, obviously.
Okay, it seems, as far as I can see, as if we were done with the questions. We're happy to distribute today's presentation. We thank you for your participation of your audience. We hope you had a good takeaway. We hope you have a nice evening, and we look forward to seeing, well, whatever, having you all on April 25 with Margaret Hagen of Stanford and with our dear friend Holger from Russia. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you very much, all of you. Have a great evening and tune in again. Thanks.